It's a brief video review of some of the things my wife and I did on our recent trip out to the northern part of the Black Hills of South Dakota. Right now what you see is some video of us off-roading in a Polaris. We could do this in our Tundra too, however our Tundra's suspension is a standard stock suspension, not set up for off-roading, but certainly if we had a TRD Pro or a TRD off-road, this is something we could have done here, and I'll talk about some of the routes you could have taken further in the video. We'll also show you places we stayed and ate and some of the things we did while we were there. We began our stay at Elkhorn Ridge RV Resort, which also has cabins available and is a very nice location just outside of Spearfish and Spearfish Canyon. So it was just a few minutes to get to either. It was also within a 15-minute drive to both Sturgis and Deadwood, so we were able to visit those areas while we were there as well. From the view here, it looks like we were the only ones staying at this RV park, but that was actually not true. A bunch of people did show up for the weekend later on. After we got settled in at Elkhorn Ridge, the first thing we did was head over to Deadwood and take a walk around and see the sights. My wife posed underneath the sign here where Wild Bill Hickok was shot, which happened on August 2nd, 1876, about a century before my wife's birthday on August 2nd. From there, we headed over to Sturgis and we had dinner at the Loud American Roadhouse. It was open and had a nice patio for seating. However, a lot of the rest of the town had closed down, such as the famous One-Eyed Jacks, which just a few weeks earlier was hopping during the annual Sturgis motorcycle rally, but now everything was quiet there. It was nice to see Sturgis and especially Deadwood, but it was not the main reason for our visit and not necessarily why we were in Spearfish Canyon. We really wanted to see the beauty that you see here of Bridal Veil Falls.
First mountain goat right near Bridal Veil Falls in Spearfish Canyon.
From there, my wife and I continued the beautiful drive up Spearfish Canyon toward Savoy. Once we got to Savoy, we stopped at Spearfish Canyon Lodge. We rented a off-highway vehicle. It was a Polaris that we were able to take on some back roads that were unpaved. And even though we didn't have good cell access at all in Spearfish Canyon, we were able to use the Avenza map system, which is able to track you even without cell service and let you know where you were going. And we first headed out towards Cement Ridge. Most of the off-highway driving that we did, we could have done in our Tundra if we had off-road suspension, but we don't. We have the standard stock suspension. Nevertheless, you could make this drive if you really wanted to. As you can see here along the way, we ran into several cattle that stared us down and watched us as we went by. We had to go by them slowly, make sure we didn't disrupt their days too much. It made for an interesting travel trip. Now, my wife does have driving in her blood. All her family seems to be involved in racing or off-roading of some sort, and it wasn't too long before I had to give up the wheel for her and let her drive for the day. As you can see here, it was quite chilly that morning, but it did warm to about 80 degrees in the afternoon. Our first stop was up the top of Cement Ridge. As we headed to Cement Ridge, I didn't see any other vehicles up there that weren't off-highway vehicles. I don't know if you actually could have made it to that destination in just a regular truck or not, but there were some other locations that we made it to. Nonetheless, once we got to the top of Cement Ridge, it was a beautiful view on a clear day, and we could see out over top of Wyoming and Montana, in addition to this part of South Dakota. As you watch here, you'll see my wife's racing roots come out as she races to the top of Cement Ridge. Once to the top of Cement Ridge, we took in the beautiful views of the fall colors. Cement Ridge Lookout was up at the top there, and it's kind of a neat little building. You can't go inside it, but just looking around and walking the area for a while was a real pleasure.
Wyoming that direction. And then as we come over here, you can see a Polaris. That one's not ours. It's just like the one we came up on. And looking out back over the Black Hills that direction.
As we took off from Cement Ridge, we traveled a lot of roadways that would not have necessarily been okay for a highway vehicle to be on, like this one here, but it was a lot of fun, and eventually we got to one of the neatest places which you could definitely take your Tundra, even one like ours with stock suspension, up to, which was Iron Creek Lake. Now, this was a beautiful mountain lake that would rival anything you would see in the southern Black Hills, including Sylvan Lake, and full of some homes and cottages and people pulling out trout.
After riding around in a side-by-side all day, we finally made it up here to Iron Lake, High Mountain Lake in the Black Hills.
It was enough of the side-by-side for the day, and it was time the next day to go and do some hiking. There are several incredible, beautiful, easy hikes. We even saw people doing some of them with strollers right along the Spearfish Canyon and very close to Savoy and Spearfish Canyon Lodge. All of them are within walking distance of the Spearfish Canyon Lodge, and just amazing sights to see. This is Rough Lock Falls, and you can see the falls in the background, the larger falls, and then the two other sets of falls that come in. And then these two falls form this little creek or river that is running down through here underneath the bridge, where you can also do an overlook and take some beautiful pictures from. Spearfish Falls that you see here is right across the street from Spearfish Canyon Lodge at the restaurant associated with the Spearfish Canyon, and it's got a beautiful hike to these falls here. It's also got some hikes along the way where you can see crystal clear water like what you're seeing there. A few miles back up Spearfish Canyon toward the city of Spearfish is this hydroelectric plant. Near the hydroelectric plant is the trailhead for the Devil's Bathtub hike, which is a pretty rigorous hike to do, and you cross the water several times. There's some very slippery spots. You want to be real careful if you do this, and maybe take hiking poles with you as well. But it's a beautiful payoff at the end, and some children even really enjoy this for doing the slide down the Devil's Bathtub. Seeing this area of the country for the first time, we wanted to take in as much as we could, and we definitely felt like we got to see a lot of it. If we were to head back to the northern Black Hills, we would probably spend some more time at places like Iron Creek Lake, taking in the beauty there, and maybe even trying to do some trout fishing while we were there. While we did enjoy our visit to Deadwood and seeing some of the other attractions around, it's more of a tourist trap and not necessarily as much of what we're interested in as some of the outdoor stuff that's available in this beautiful area. From the trails we traveled and the things we saw as they were gearing up for getting ready for the later fall and winter, it's clear that this is a very popular snowmobile destination as well, and a number of people seem to have vacation homes here in the mountains also. And if we had it to do over, I don't know that we would rent a side-by-side here. Plenty of these back roads were available to us in our Tundra, and we might take advantage of that next time now that we know them a little better. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and it's part of a series where I'm going to cover next the destinations we did in Wyoming and review more of our trip for you, and then cover how our truck performed towing our Lance travel trailer and how the Lance travel trailer performed. So keep a lookout for those in the future.